Good morning. Welcome to my home. My name is Rebecca. If you haven't visited me before, I do tutorials on different kinds of art forms. And today we're going to be working on composition, which can be used for drawing, for painting, and even for photography. Most of the tutorial today will be basic sort of rules, I suppose you would call them, of do's and do nots, things that will make a more successful drawing for you. So I'm going to turn the camera down to, you won't be seeing this smiling face for a little while yet. I'll be right back. Here we go. So my very short supply list consists obviously of pencils, rulers, pens. I also recommend that you have blending stumps. They're cardboard, made of cardboard. I'll be using them later. I also recommend that you have on hand at least 2 sizes of mats, which you just can go to Walmart or somewhere and get standard cut mats. Probably 9 by 12 and 11 by 14 are the best sizes, because when you draw something, you draw it to the inside measurement, and that's pretty small drawing. 11 by 14 is a more standard size, and it gives you something approximately the size of a regular piece of computer paper. So it is a little bit bigger, and I would turn this over and sort of measure with a pencil on your drawing paper the size of the opening, because that's important. I cheat. I used to teach watercolor, and I called my classes Cheating 101. And I don't think there's anything wrong. If I can't draw a perfect circle, can you? So any kind of aid that you can use that will help you, I just use them. This is a very large one, but this is a quilting ruler, and this is something that is really handy to have. I got this actually at a thrift store for a couple dollars. But to get horizontal lines and vertical lines that aren't wonky, I recommend that you have that. Other than that, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what to do and what not to do. So number 1 is to get your mat size on your piece of paper. And the second thing is to physically divide your drawing paper into thirds in both directions. And I have several different sizes of these already made up in my kit. The reason that we're dividing them into thirds is because for composition purposes, they call them the golden points or the golden spots. Where these intersect is where you want your focal point to be, if possible, or at least close to it. The other thing you want to do is you want to take just a piece of computer paper. Doesn't have to be anything big, fancy. I would divide it in half that way, and I would divide it in half that way. And this is going to be an aid for you to draw what you're going to draw. So number 1, first thing we're going to do is we're going to, using your third as a cheater, you can draw on this, or you can just hold it down and find out where that spot is. The second thing you want to do is to mentally or physically divide your paper in half horizontal and in half vertical. So both lines, because when you are drawing, you do not, this is one of the nevers, you do not put your horizon line exactly in the center. You do not put your tree or whatever it is exactly in the center, or a flagpole, or any important vertical line directly in the center. There's something that looks wrong about a drawing or a painting. If you look, you'll find that one of the 2 of these sort of unspoken rules or spoken rules has been broken. Okay, I think we're ready. So I have my mat And the inside of an 11 by 14 mat is approximately the same size as a piece of regular computer paper. And I don't want to spend $200 or $300 to frame everything, so I buy the mats and work backwards from the size of the mat. I have 2 or 3 sizes of mats in my kit. So you're going to take your paper and you're going to divide it into thirds. There are not a lot of always and never rules that I obey, but in composition there are 5 or 6. So if you divide your paper into thirds, whether it's portrait or landscape, doesn't really matter that much, but divide it into thirds, your horizon, which you're going to use your quilting ruler to put on, must not be exactly in the center. So if you fold a piece of paper in half and that's that size and find out exactly where your center is, your horizon must not be exactly in the center. Higher or lower, way up, way down, doesn't really matter. The sort of rule of thumb is thirds, but I don't obey all the rules. So but definitely I do obey the rule of do not put your horizon in the very center. If you have a vertical line, a flagpole, a tree, the edge of a building, do not put it directly in the center. So fold it in half, find out where your center is. Make sure it's off to one or the other side of that. If you have a pathway or a bridge or a road, do not make it exit exactly here. So, for example, if I'm drawing this, I wouldn't have, let's get rid of this one. I would not have my road like that, where it goes like that. I would have it, you know, if you're going to have it on the corner, at least have it both above and below, so that, and then it gets smaller as it goes away. A stream, anything like that, do not have it exit exactly in the corner. If you have something like a bird flying in your sky, have him flying into, towards or away, but not out of, because your eye will want to go where that bird's going to fly, and you'll know something's wrong and you won't know what's wrong. That's what's wrong. So you don't want to do that. Anything that is smaller is going to be farther away, and anything that has farther away has less detail. So I have an example of what not to do. This is a painting that I did, Campbell River, Cape Mudge Lighthouse, and these, which are smaller with less detail, shouldn't be there. They should be way over, back up in there. So this, I wondered why this painting didn't sell. Now I know. So you have to do this, but you have to put them way up there or way over there, not right beside these. So the focal point, which can be, it can be a building, a person, the sunset, it doesn't matter what it is. In composition, it needs to be either lightest thing on the page, or most color, or darkest. If you're doing a pencil drawing, then you would darken it down, or darken everything down around it and leave it really light. So the last thing, basically, real rule is that your lights and your darks must not be 50-50. So let's go back to this one. So I have, this is really dark. This is the next dark. Well, no, this I guess is the next darkest. This is the next darkest. But I have maybe 15 to 20% dark and the rest lighter. And that, it doesn't matter if it's 10 and 90 or 40 and 60. Do not make it 50-50. Because again, your eye will say there's something wrong here and you won't know what it is. And do make your darks dark. Do make your lights light. So you want to have something with no pencil, no smudge, nothing on it. And you want to have something that's dark enough that because that draws your eye. That color the darkness of the color, not the color, but the darkness of the color draws your eye. And the next thing that draws your eye is this, right? So just try to think in terms of, I do a little value sketch when I'm doing something that's just this big, and I color it in with pencil where my shadows are, where my lights are, and then I prop that up and use that when I'm working. So, okay, so here, let's get to our actual drawing. So here's my thirds and thirds. So I'm going to just do a very simple sort of sunset west coast of British Columbia scene. When you draw a tree, for example, don't fill it all in. Let it be sort of sparse and so that you can see something behind it. Because if you fill it all in, it just becomes a big dark blob. It also, the leaves or the branches get smaller at the top than they are at the bottom. The trunk is smaller at the top than it is at the bottom. And these little branches should be wider as they get close to the, and I didn't do that, wider as they get close to the tree and thinner as it gets out to the edge. So there's my first drawing. Then using my quilter's ruler and not halfway up, I have put a horizon line behind my tree. And then I put my mountains behind my tree. Now, with composition, you know that a tree is not bigger than a mountain. Logically in your brain, you know that, which means that's now background. It pushes it back by crossing over the lines. It pushes it back. So then I'm going to add in my golden spot, my sunset, which is behind the mountain, and I have put it also behind the tree. If it was just up here, it wouldn't be as good of a, it's not that you can't do it, but it wouldn't be as good of a composition, okay? And now I have no foreground, which I need, but I've got the beginnings of a composition, okay? You do not put, well, it's not, you can't put one thing in, but do not put two things in a composition. So 1, 3, 5, uneven numbers works best. And again, I'll have to get rid of my little horizon in front of here. So 1, 2, 3 things. And again, this is smaller than this, therefore I know it's farther away. However, it crosses up into, and if I had ended it down here, it would work, but it's better if you cross into there because that, again, pushes your mountains back and makes this more foreground, but not as close as this. So this one will have more detail. This will have less detail, okay? And then you have to seat them somewhere because right now these are just floating, right? So you need a foreground. If you ever watch, I don't watch golf, but I have seen golf on TV, they start out down low, focused on the grass, and then as they pan back, you see the pond, and then as they pan back, you see the golf course. You need foreground, midground, background in a good composition. So for my foreground here, I have several choices. One of them is to, this is from an old one, obviously, because I put a couple more trees down here. But sit it on a rock, and then do your value, make something look a little bit more solid. So let's skip over that one. If you find that these all become like one massive blob, you're coloring or whatever, you can erase some of this, definitely, but you can also just darken it down. So if you just take a charcoal pencil, well, I'm going to do a whole video just on pencils and textures and stuff like that. But so just darken it down and then use your stump to blend it out. And by the way, this will get smudged by your hand. If you can find an old printed photograph with the glossy front, turn it upside down, put your hand on that, and then when you move it around, it won't smear everything. And this actually, you can pick this up and use it to color with. So I have I have it on rock, and then I have also put like grasses, tall grasses or whatever. And if you make it cross over things, that becomes more detail, obviously, but that becomes your foreground. You know, grass is not bigger than a tree. And that's how the brain works. This is from a previous painting in a class that I taught. And it's just going to show you the amount of detail that you need to have in the closest one compared to next one over. And the other thing is, with computers these days, take some photos of trees and turn them into line drawings and study, because you may think you know what something looks like, but until you sort of analyze it and take it apart like that, you don't really know. One more thing quickly, cut two more things quickly. When you have a building in your composition, do not draw it straight on, and when you're taking photographs as well, go 30 feet to the right and take a picture of it. It's a much more interesting composition for you. And your values, your light and dark values, I can't say strongly enough how important that is, that they not be 50-50. Okay. Well, I hope that you learned something today, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. I certainly did. If you have any specific questions, drawing, composition, that kind of thing, please do write them in the comments and I will answer. Have a great day, and thanks for coming to see me. Bye-bye.